In this video, we're looking at a Dell 6430. It's a 14-inch laptop built back in 2014, making it 9 years old. It has 8 gigabytes of DDR3 RAM running at 1600 megahertz, SD RAM at that. It does have a third generation i7 chip in it, running at 3 gigahertz. The question is, if we update the RAM from 8 to 16 and we switch out the hard drive to an SSD drive, will that speed not only the start time for this machine, but make it more useful? It took a little over 1 minute and 36 seconds to get to the desktop, but our drive indicates that it is being fully utilized, so we can't do anything until that light starts to go off. At about 2.5 minutes, we get an indication that we can now actually start doing real work on the laptop, and that's just a bit too long and a bit too annoying, even though this laptop still has plenty of life in it. So let's see if this upgrade will help make this machine work better and longer. For this project, we've purchased 2 sticks of 8 gig Patriot Signature Series and a Crucial MX500, which is a 1 terabyte SSD drive. Before we proceed with the installation, you may want to back up anything that's important onto an external drive of some sort. You're also going to need some kind of precision screwdriver to remove screws on the bottom. And you're going to need a USB to SATA adapter for the hard drive so that you can configure this without first having to install it. That way you can transfer the operating system from the spinning drive here to the SSD drive. And it should be seamless because there is software that's included. It's not actually on here. You have to go to the website, but that's given to you in the instructions. So first thing I'm going to do is back up the internal drive, so in case something goes wrong, I have a way of at least getting back to that data. Once our hard drive has been backed up, we go to the SSD, open the box. You'll see the drive with an adapter that's included. You may or may not need that on the computer. We'll find that out. And then there's this one sheet, and all we need off this sheet, and the only thing you can really get off of it is you find your language, then it tells you the website that you need to go to, which is crucial.com/support/SSD. That'll take you to this page. We scroll down, you'll see some drives going across the screen. None of those are our drives, so we go to page 2 of that, and there's our MX500. That's our drive, and then that'll take you to this page, which gives you access to the firmware update, so you can do a firmware to the hard drive before it's actually put into operation. And also we can get our cloning software so that we can take our operating system from this laptop and copy it to the SSD drive. And both pieces of software are absolutely free. You've downloaded and installed the software. Now it's time to connect your SSD to your SSD to USB adapter. This does not come with the kit. This is something that you have to purchase separately, either from them or someone else. I just happen to have one laying around. You're going to plug the adapter to the back of the card. There's an interface with gold strips on one side, and it just slides in and locks. Then you take the other end and you plug it into a USB port, and it's always the wrong way. And now we're ready to run either the software for updating the firmware or for actually cloning from our internal hard drive to the SSD. We double click on the Acronis True Image for Crucial shortcut. You may have to tell the system that to allow that as an administrator. And if you get this, that means that you don't have a good connection to your SSD card. So check your USB cable and try again. If you continue seeing the same error, then come down to the Start menu, right click, and go to Disk Management. And that'll open up a window and it'll want to initialize the SSD, tell it OK. And once that is done, we should be able to go back to our program, click yes, and it still gives us a problem. All right, well then in that case, we're going to go back to the Start menu, Disk Management. Then we're going to select disk 1, which is the SSD drive, because the other one has a C partition on it. And we're going to right click on that, and we're going to tell it to make a new simple volume. And go next. Accept the defaults. We're not going to assign a drive letter to it because it's going to end up being C. And then we're going to let it format the drive, and then it's finished. Okay, now we should be able to go to our cloning program, and it still doesn't see it. That's buggy. Since we continue having the problem with the drive not being recognized, I've swapped USB ports, still had the same issue. So now what I've done is I've swapped the cable out to see if that makes any difference. And we still get no indication. So at this point, I mean, we can continue with more troubleshooting. I'm going to swap the port on this. The other thing to do is just get a different piece of software that will allow you to clone from your laptop over to your SSD. Since the included software didn't work, I'm going to this website, AOME, and they have a backupper. And there is a free version. There's also a paid version. So we're just going to take the free version and we're going to use that for cloning, and that's all we really need it for. So we're cool. If you like the features of the program, you can obviously buy that. But I tried calling tech support, and they're closed on the weekend, and it's a Saturday, so I'm not going to wait until Monday before I can use this drive. So we'll just install this program, and I'll take you through that installation in case you run into a similar situation with the software that's included with the Crucial SSD. Once it's downloaded, we double click on the executable, tell it to install. Now, of course, if this doesn't work, that means we have problems with the actual SSD, since we've swapped out ports and the cable, and none of those seem to be the problem. Once it's done, we get a successful installation check mark. We minimize this screen. There's a prompt there to enjoy. We click on that. It's launching. From the home screen, we want to go to clone, and we want to do a disk clone, and it wants us to select the source disk, which is going to be disk 0 in my case. You see it's the C drive. It's the only one with information on it. So that is my source. And then we can hit next. And now it wants me to pick a destination. And we have this new volume here. So I'm going to pick that. I'm going to click next. And this is letting you know that everything's going to be overwritten. Sort of a warning that if you have data there and it's not a brand new disk, it's going to wipe it out for you. It looks like we're good to go. If you're not careful, of course, you will wipe out all your data. So be careful that you do this correctly. And now we can start the clone. We get a warning that the size partition of the destination is going to be unchanged. So there's going to be some unallocated space to that. If we go to edit that, it's going to tell you that you have to buy the Pro version of this. So we're just going to live with that for the time being. We get an ad that pops up. We tell it to start the clone. Yes, it's okay. We can go forward. We're going to confirm. We're going to tell it to start the clone. But first we have to get rid of the ad. Start the clone. And I get a vicious circle here where it's trying to push that you need to update. And if I want to do that, I'll just buy the other software. Okay, we're done with this piece of software. Before finally giving up, this laptop happens to have Macrom Reflect, which is a free edition for non-commercial use. So I launched that, and you can see our C drive information. Then there's a button here that says clone this disk. So we select that, and our source is our C drive, and let's select a disk to clone, and that's our new drive here, and we can tell it's the new drive because it says new volume and it's completely empty. And then we go to next and next, because we don't need to schedule this, it's just we want it to happen. And here's an update of what is about to happen. So that's our source, the C drive, and it's going to copy the three little partitions that are within there, the operating system. There's a little unused sector and the MBR. Then it's going to clone it over to the other drive. So now we hit finish, and we want this to run, enter the name for the backup definition, and that's fine if we call it my clone. We hit OK. Because you're cloning information from your laptop over to the SSD, depending if you have a lot or a little, that will determine how long this process will take. So know that you can walk away from this and just let it run until it's done. And it gives us one final warning confirming that things are going to be overwritten, and we're going to tell it to continue. After almost 27 minutes, the clone process is complete. We can close that. One thing I omitted to do, and which I'll have to do now, is I have to go to other task, and I want to create a rescue media. And you can do that either to a USB. I'm going to use an old CD that I have from the 70s, since I have plenty of those going around. Now I select Create Rescue Media, hit Next, and now it's offering to update the Macrom Windows PE files, and I guess we'll go with that just so that we're on the latest version. It's for 64 bits because that's what my system will accept. The system prepares the Windows PE image. We make sure our CD DVD burner is selected, and we hit Finish. Then it writes the files to the CD. After several minutes, the CD or DVD is written to, and you can remove that and set that aside. We can click OK, close out of that program, open up Windows Explorer, and if we look at this PC, we should see our C drive, which is the old spinner, and our new drive, which is the SSD. And if I look in there, it should look exactly like all the files that are on the C drive. Now we are finally able to turn off the laptop, remove the old hard drive, and install the SSD. On this Dell E6430, we have two screws that should release the cover for the hard drive. Put those in a safe place so you don't lose them. And there's an adapter that's on this drive. And here's the drive. And There's no mounting screw there. There is one mounting screw on this side, and I believe that's the only thing that's really holding this in place. So we'll take this off. And this just drops out. There's an old adapter that's on here. We may or may not need that. I'm going to see how this unit fits. So the pins are going to go into the machine. So it's going to go this way. And then this rib part is going to go up. So it's going to attach this way. Now you'll notice there's a pin here. If you can see that right there, there's a little pin. And there's a hole right here on the drive. So we just got to make sure those two mate. And then where we took that screw out, there's an opening. So we'll attach our screw to that. But regardless, so now the question is, will this slide in and work fine? And it appears that it will. There's a piece of gasket, and I think I can just let that right in there. Let's see. Seems to be caught up on something. We continued having problems trying to fit this drive in here with this piece of gasket that was on the inside, so we took that off. Apparently, on the old installation, there were two pieces of gasket, and what that prevented was the drive from rattling around. But remember, there's this adapter that comes with the unit, and if I just dry mount this and insert it, it takes up the lateral up and down space, so it won't bounce around. There is some left and right movement, but this is going to be screwed in place. So I'm actually going to utilize this adapter, and all we do is come to the side that has the white tape, and we peel that off, and it's a sticky tape. Once you get the little white paper off of it, and we just apply that to the top of the drive. Okay, now if I insert that in, it should slide in and it should fit nice and easy. And now we're going to attach our screws, and we're going to boot up our system and see what happens. Turning on the computer, we're going to go F2 or F12. I'm not sure which one it is on the Dell computer, but that should get you into the BIOS. I believe it was F2 that got me there. What we'll want to do is go over to General, hit the plus, go to Boot Sequence, and then we're going to come over and make sure that CD DVD is the first thing in the boot sequence, because we're going to need to boot up to our rescue disk that we made. So I'm going to insert that into the computer. We're going to exit this and then reboot this system. The machine powers up. We should get a prompt to boot from the CD. And there's the prompt, press any key. Once the file finishes loading, you'll get this screen. We're going to look for Fix Windows Boot Problems. Click on that. It'll highlight your drive. And now we're going to tell it next. And next. And finish. And it'll ask to restart your PC. you tell it yes. And this time, if we get the prompt for the DVD CD player, we're going to ignore it and it'll go right past that to the SSD card and it should boot up cleanly. So we ignore this prompt, just let it time out. And Windows launches. And I didn't put an external clock on this, but I'll show you one generated from the file. And it looks like we booted up much faster. And the interface looks like what I had on the spinner drive that we removed. So best to play around with it at this point and just make sure everything works. There's also one other thing we can do, and that is to go to our Crucial storage, hit yes, and once this program loads up, you of course can update the firmware if you haven't already. But there's this other feature here, Momentum Cache. It's a function that you can enable that'll allow your disk to run even faster. It's an option. It's up to you whether or not you want to enable it. So you simply come here, enable the Momentum Cache, and that should allow for a slightly faster boot up. And for some operations, quicker operation of utilizing the SSD. Pressing the button gives you another window telling you that it's going to require a reboot. So you can enable it and the system will reboot once again. If you haven't already removed the CD, then you'll get that temporary prompt request and just ignore it. It'll go straight to the operating system. In my case, I'm actually going to pop out the CD so that it is out of the way. And you're about to be signed out, rebooting the system, and it does it on its own. And we're back at the desktop. So once again, play around, make sure all your programs are working correctly and that there are no issues with your laptop. And then once you're satisfied with everything, you can either save this or repurpose it either on another laptop or a desktop if you want. With our SSD installed, it's time to see if there's a speed difference between that and our old hard drive. You remember that took quite a while longer to start up. So we're going to run a clock on this and see how quickly we get to the desktop and that the hard drive spinning light, or in this case the SSD operating light, goes out. So at a little over 20 seconds, we see the welcome. We're still not at the desktop itself. We're at the desktop at 35, and there is very little to no indication that the SSD is being utilized. So I think we saved about a minute in boot time, which is very impressive. And we're still running at 8 gigs of RAM. So the next project is to upgrade it to 16 and see if that makes any difference. I had all but given up using Premiere on this laptop because it was just so incredibly slow with the old drive and it would stutter. And I was working with HD and didn't want to use proxies at all. So this SSD drive makes a world of difference because it's very snappy. Everything's running fine. I am running an older version. It's 2018 because without certain CPU speeds, you really can't go much higher. So, but this will at least allow me to do some work away from my home workstation, which can be great, especially if you're on a plane or having to travel. In looking at the task manager, you can see that memory usage when scrolling across a timeline can really come up close to my 8 gigs of RAM. So adding an additional 8 should help that situation. To install our memory sticks on the Dell E6430, we're going to have to unplug it, remove the battery. There are 2 tabs on here that should release the battery. And if they don't hold in place, there it goes. That takes the battery out. Then you're going to have to take out the hard drive and the DVD player. Those are need to come out. Then once you do that, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, possibly 5 screws that need to come out. I'm also going to, before I do anything else, I'm going to push the power button for about 5 seconds to make sure that there's just no charge on any of the capacitors, that everything has been discharged out of the unit. And that's done just by simply holding down the power button. And there are 2 additional screws here and here. And you lift up from here, and it should slowly snap out. It's hinged on the front of the laptop. Here's our RAM. There are 2 sticks there. To lift the memory out, we just pull on the spring, the memory pops up. We pull back, it comes out. We're going to have to take the back one out since we're going to have to replace that one also. Again, it pops out. So notice that the card just slides in. So we're going to take our new memory, starting at the back, and you're going to slide it in, and then you're going to press down, open the pins on either side so it holds down that card. Grab the first memory card. Again, we're going to slide in. And there's a detent there, so make sure it's going on the correct side. And normally it's label side up. And again, spread the pin on either side so that it catches. And voila, we are set. So I'm going to take these, put them in the same little plastic that the other cards came in, because I could repurpose this on a different laptop that has even less memory. So now all we're going to do is the reverse. We're going to put the shell back in. It hinges at the front. Snap it back into place. Then we're going to put in the hard drive, the CD-ROM, the battery, the cover to the battery, put in all our screws, and then we'll be able to start this up. With the laptop assembled, we turn on the power. We're going to go with F2 because we want to go into the BIOS and just make sure that the memory is seen. System information. If we look, we see DIMM A is 8, DIMM B is 8192. So that's our 16 gigs of memory, available memory, 16. So the BIOS sees it, and we're in great shape, so we can exit out of here and just let the system boot. And once the system is booted, I will launch Premiere and see how the memory behaves when we scrub across the timeline. With the task manager running, we see that we're using 5 out of 16 gigs. We have our timeline. I'm just going to scrub across that, and as we saw before, that tended to push me all the way up to 8. And we can play. It has no problem playing stuff. And we see that we're almost at 8 gigs, but I got plenty of headroom. So if I'm running other applications or if something's rendering in the background, that's not going to be an issue. The only limitation, obviously, on this old laptop is now the CPU. That'll be the bottleneck, and there's nothing I can do about that. The SSD gave us the advantage of a quicker boot up and stuff loading in and it responding fairly quick. The RAM just gave us the additional headroom so that we could process and not push the memory all the way to the extreme where we might get a blue screen of death or something. And again, the limitation is the CPU, but you know, for the old machine that it is, I've just breathed new life into it for less than $100. The installation of the SSD drive dropped our boot time considerably, but will going from 8 gigs of memory to 16 gigs provide any further enhancement? Let's take a look. Let's skip ahead to the results. Our SSD with memory came in at just under 37 seconds, while the SSD came in at 35.5. Of course, the old drive came in at 2 minutes and 30 seconds. So there is a huge leap in improvement once you switch over to the SSD. Putting additional memory into your system just buys you overhead for doing other things while you're working with multiple programs. So not necessarily a bad investment in this case. After all, we only spent $34 for the RAM, $52 for the SSD. So for under $90, we have a big improvement, and we've just basically lengthened the longevity of it. The main problem we had with this installation was the Crucial free software, which didn't work in our case. And then we had to go to a third party, which didn't work. And then we ended up with another third party that finally did work. So that can be frustrating. Of course, I wasn't willing to wait for their tech support to be available on a Monday when I was doing this on a Saturday. If you're able to do that, I'm sure they would find a solution for you. Other than that, this should be a fairly simple upgrade, and it should be quite satisfying once it's done. If you found this video interesting or useful, give us a thumbs up, leave us a comment, join the subscription team, and as always, thank you ever so much for watching.